Hey and welcome. I'm Dave and you are listening to Life Is Peachy, a nostalgia-fueled podcast that allows me to sit here and waffle on about the bands and the albums that became the soundtrack to my life.
Thank you, Nonpoint. See you next time, honest fist.
Growing up in the 90s, the early 2000s, and while we're at it, sharing a few memories from Her Name Is Murder Productions. Why did I choose to open this random episode by playing a remix of the Life Is Peachy theme song and doing so without any warning or context? Why did I take what was familiar to you as a listener and change it up and shake up your safe place? Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't. Maybe I'll backtrack to using the signature theme song next episode and never talk about why I decided to mix things up. Or maybe you like the version with scratches more and don't want me to go back to the way things were. I mean, essentially, they're the same thing, just delivered in different ways, but coming from the same narrative. Maybe both serve a purpose, and depending on what you want in that moment, there are now options for different emotion, energy, and vibe. And maybe I'm overthinking all of this, and you just don't give a progression. My dear friend, we meet again.
Do you want to know what it is?
Start the music. Forming in 1997 with the OG lineup of vocalist Elias Soriano, drummer Robb Rivera, guitarist Andrew Goldman, and bassist Ken MacMillan, Nonpoint are a band that have transcended through decades and stayed true to who they are and what they do. Birthed amongst that sweet pre-2000s nu metal boom and amid their ups and downs and remaining intact as one of the few nu metal era bands to actually make it out on the other side, it could appear Nonpoint had all of the answers, or at the very least were written into the script with enough plot armor to make claim to a fruitful 25 plus year career in their name. 2000 statement would throw them out into the stratosphere, touring with the likes of Head Planet Earth, Mudvayne, Fuel, Taproot, Drowning Pool, along with appearing on the 2001's Ozfest US tour. This strong work ethic based around heavy touring and promoting the name and music would see their major label debut eventually peak the US Billboard at 166 a year into its release. And with the curtains coming to a close on this successful touring cycle of Statement, fans all waited on bated breath for the approaching major label Sophomore. 'I've set the scene accordingly. My hope is it's clear that In layman's terms, development was either going to swing one way or the other. Smack bang between fan favourite Statement and 2004's Recoil, the pressure was on to perform and deliver an album with the aim of taking things to the next level and a wider audience. So it goes without saying that it is an absolute privilege to now have the opportunity to look back on 25 years of Nonpoint and 20 years of development with the one and only Elias Soriano. Thank you so much for your time and energy, and welcome to the Life Is Peachy Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, David.
You're not mad?
Oh, man. Can't tell you, it was one of the best times I ever had.
Already with 2 independent releases under your belt, it was 2000's major label debut Statement that proved to be the band's main introduction to not only your home country, but around the world, myself included, all the way in Australia. My first encounter with your music was actually through 2001's Ozfest compilation CD, a live rendition of What a Day.
Sitting on your ass all day, thinking about your hangover in the party. You left your fucking keys out and the bag full. Ride from a stranger that you never met before. Got so friendly that I had to take the ride. For some reason you resemble that guy. Wanted for a robbery. Being on this kid, you remind me of my stepson. He juggled with all gram. What was that move that they taught in self-defense? You blocked the killer's knife move with some confidence. This ain't no way I tried inside a moving car.
A song sounding familiar with what I was clearly enjoying at the time, yet with this exciting, fresh delivery and flow. There was an instant connection to this song, and in particular, the marriage between your vocal style and music. I remember while in high school, many afternoons in my bedroom blasting this song on loop and performing concerts to my wall, changing it up between vocals and air guitar. And yeah, if you're listening, try it. There's always time for air guitar.
No stairway. Denied.
It's so much fun. But yeah, What a Day. And the album it was from obviously had a huge impact on myself and essentially began my connection and journey with Nonpoint's music. But I didn't make or release the album. So how did Statement change or impact the life of Nonpoint?
Hey, motherfucker.
Come on! That's right! Nonpoint! Darwin's grim in the house of the exit! Now me,
Man, you're making me go back. Yeah, it had layers of how it changed. Initially, it changed us as a band. We went through our first real filter of the songwriting process and creating, where we felt songs were what they were. You know, in the local scene, when you're writing a song, you set the bar based on obviously things that you listen to, but also to your peer groups and other people in your genre. So you try to stay somewhat traditional, but still try to add your little bit of flair.
I got you all in check. Come on!
Statement was exactly that, where we had that first chance of working with a producer, sitting down with someone looking at our music other than the 4 members of the band at the time. That's where it really changed us, where we realized we were moving into a world where it was about crafting on top of being fun, that there could be fun found in the actual process in pushing yourselves and trying to make things better or trying to look at parts of music in a different way. So I think Statement put the working hat on and really showed us that it was time to start working on music if we were planning on being artists and professional musicians. You know, at the time, because nu metal was doing what it was doing, and I grew up a hip hop kid, I really didn't listen to rock music. I wasn't following rock music when I got into the band. I had that R&B background, that hip hop rhythm and cadence that people really gravitated towards. That was really natural because it was what I liked, where in the scene, it really seemed at the time where bands were trying to create that, and we kind of were already that. I think that Statement introduced that, I guess, basic natural pocket that we were in that people really saw promise behind. So there were a couple of things that Statement did for us.
By the early 2000s, once cementing yourselves into the scene sonically, what lessons were learnt from those subsequent years on the road touring your major label debut?
We'd set the bar high for ourselves, and the genre that we were in had a lot of energy behind it. So we had to stay electric.
I said, God damn, what a rush! Woo!
And following the success and essentially unleashing your statement into a wider audience, coming into the headspace of writing the band's major label follow-up, I still imagine a lot of fans were no doubt hoping for a Statement Part 2, you know what I mean? Purely based on how well the album was received and how it really connected with its listeners. So, taking into consideration fan expectation, label expectation, and of course your own expectations, can you talk me through the birthing of Development?
Development was exactly that. It was that sophomore record. There were a lot of expectations coming from a lot of different directions.
The life cycle of the Salientia Honora, commonly known as the frog, can be broken down into several developmental stages. Each stage presents new challenges and potential hazards. We begin our study now with the first stage of development, the egg.
Now, that's the crack on the inside, and I start to play. Now, my fingers stuck, oh, I stood my stay. Now, my world is bent from this.
We put a lot of trust into our teams and to the people that were guiding us at the time. And we admittingly went experimental in ways that I wouldn't say we regret now, but we saw it wasn't exactly our wheelhouse. We had those standout songs on development, but there was still something, even the band knew, the speed upon which we were having to put that record together. The fact that we wrote some of it on the road on acoustic guitars, it definitely led to that extra step into the songwriter, radio hit direction that bands were going at that time. Some people saw that as a positive, some people saw that as a negative. You know, at the time we were just trying to write the best songs that we could based on everything that we had learned up until then.
So one of the things I'm really interested in talking a bit more about, and this seemingly ties in with that whole radio-friendly concept, can you talk me through what you wanted to bring to the table for development as a vocalist, and how you found the confidence to expand your voice so much and put it out there like that on such a crucial release, the follow-up to what you had established vocally on Statement? Was this label suggestion or something personal?
Not even the label wanting, the team, everyone, label, band, producer, managers, all hearing my voice and really wanting me to use my voice. Knowing that my background was in theater and was in show choir and that I had a trained voice when I'm just screaming and rapping all over the first record.
And I imagine you would have really learned a lot about your voice and the use of your voice as a result of those early years touring.
I did. I learned that I was doing it wrong and that I was hurting myself. Our first A&R guy, Hans Haydelt, actually came out to a New York show. We were doing 8 shows in a row, 12 shows in a row. One time I did 22 shows in a row. We were just hitting it way too hard. For the genre of music, there weren't a lot of tools available within my price range. So the label felt like it was important to have longevity. So Hans, he got me in to take a couple lessons with Greg Drew, who worked at the time with Corey from In Living Color, Lenny Kravitz, and a couple of people. And just within a couple of lessons of working with him, because I had done theater and I had done vocal training in high school and in college. So I had some roots in it, but outside of the show choir stuff or the Broadway performances that I did when I was in high school, it was a different animal.
To be or not to be? Not to be.
I just wasn't built for it yet. You know, I had the voice and I had the technique, but I needed to realize the animal that I was trying to train. So sitting down with Greg, he asked me all the questions, you know, what do you do? Do you drink? Do you smoke? And he gave me the rundown and showed me what was doing what to my voice and how I could work with that or I have to change. What would you like to do, Elias? I'd like to sing in my higher register. I used to sing a lot higher. In order to do that, you can't be screaming it, because you can't scream in a higher register. Eventually, you'll get nodules and you'll eventually have to go through surgery and blah, blah, blah. So you got to make a choice. At the time, there wasn't that much technique. People like Melissa Cross, The Art of Screaming, and things are now coming into play. I've heard she's actually commented on the way that I sing and saying that I do it properly, which is great because I actually try to focus on that now more so than ever. Shout out to Melissa. Thanks for the props. But I'd love to take her training and her course to see where else I can give power to my voice. But I learned to kind of work with what I got to keep the fun happening, but also to make sure that I'm giving everybody the show that they deserve.
Strange days to normal, just trying to find the words, making your mind up from what you've heard.
How would you describe the chemistry of the band's lineup entering the studio at the end of 2001?
I'm all for using my voice. But what we did lose was the chance for us to get in a room and work the songs. We were young, and the writing process was still 4 dudes in a room writing stuff on pads and taping stuff on a cassette player to then reference later on. When we went into development, it was the first year Pro Tools was coming around. We bought a Pro Tools rig. We had it with us on the bus. We're playing with plugins and sounds and textures and all these little things. And you get ambitious and you want to have fun. And that's what we did. But it was more about the product that was coming out of the computer as opposed to the product that was coming out of us. So it lended to a more polished, finished kind of product.
They're in the computer?
Yeah, they're definitely in there. I just don't know how he labeled them.
I got it.
And Statement wasn't so polished. It was very compressed and edgy and bright and hard. Development was thick and full and had layers and depth and was mixed on 5.1, and Bob Clearmountain mixed it. So it was almost that jump that Incubus took from Science to Make Yourself.
Ah, cool. That makes sense. That's a really great example comparison.
Wow.
This development of sound and state of the band entering the creation of your sophomore, how much of this was initiated naturally by the band, say in comparison to perhaps label strings pulling things in certain directions and speaking louder than the band's voice?
Full transparency and honesty, and just like anyone else would be, I think, in my position, when you're being told you're doing well, or when you're told something sounds amazing, you really don't argue. You know what I mean? If you expect to hit a mark and someone tells you you hit above the mark, you very rarely argue. Further to that point, you question your opinion in that position.
Wait the time, the chance, a glance, a second look at your stance on the way the day could change. Strange days to normal days. Just try
And you lean on the opinions of professionals. And that's why you work with producers, or that's why you work with co-writes, or that's why you work with those people. We learned that lesson from there. Moving on to our 3rd and our 4th record, that's not what we intended on doing. So that's why you saw the shift start to happen. Even some of the members of our team were really hoping to catch fire with this kind of audience group.
Stage 2 is known as the tadpole stage. Its vulnerable body consists of not much more than a head and tail. Now, in an extremely fragile state, it faces danger where its only defense is the gift of instinct.
And we would look back going, well, we had that audience group for a while, so it's not far-fetched for me to think that another song in that direction isn't going to spark them. A lot of times we would find ourselves saying, hey, let's get back to grassroots and to, what really made us us.
Their early work was a little too new wave for my taste. But when Sports came out in '83, I think they really came into their own, commercially and artistically.
Gotta make the list of what is best. Gotta make the fist and beat against. Have to leave an impression. Do you have a suggestion? I am all out of good ideas. The ones you have are whispered into your ears. With all you care to share. How did I end up here? Your signs are pointing to no.
Hans fought with his label and fought with my team to keep us where we were and what we were at Statement. It does have that chance to get into those rooms where many people are giving their opinions on what direction you should go or what sounds good or what songs are going to make the record, because ultimately everyone knows I could turn in 20 songs. If the label says, hey, we're going to drop these 10, that's what they do. And you really do not have a choice on that.
Gotta make the list of what is best. Gotta make a fist and beat against. Have to make this perfectly clear. I'm not waiting for 1 million years for us.
Fast forward to the story that we're in right now, where now we're independent. Now we have our own label. Now we drop what we want when we want. Now we write the music however we want to. But we still have our 20-year tenure of working with producers and working with songwriters. So those lessons that we needed to learn to elevate our craft and to become better artists and more mindful artists, now we can take into our original plan and our feeling of, let's give these people all the Nonpoint we can give them.
As these songs were being written, what were your first thoughts while in the studio as these development riffs were coming into the fold?
It was a bit of a whirlwind. We were coming off of the road. We had toured nonstop, relentlessly for months on end.
How would you like me? Where would you like me to be?
So it was a, hey, the label needs the record. We got to get in there and get it done.
Go ahead and guess. Let's play the game.
And could you make me worry just a little more? The way you look at me confuses me. Even with you next to me, your signs are pointed to nowhere. That's exactly where I belong.
It was fun because we got to get back into the recording process. It's probably my most favorite part of being a musician, is being able to write and record music. Performing is, amazing, but it's really the crafting is what really gets my goat. So getting into a studio, being around all the buttons and the knobs and the faders, of the time, getting into the control room, pulling up the sounds, getting it all loud and making it sound beautiful is something that I definitely remember during that process, walking into that studio and being like, all right, let's get to work.
Cool, all right, take one. Hands. Let's go.
I don't know how to say to make you understand that when I turn my head to look, I wanna see your hands. You used to care in the beginning.
There's a really great showmanship between members here. I'm particularly a fan of Andrew Goldman's work on this album, and I know a lot of Nonpoint fans in general are fond of his time in the band. But as a unit within development, I really feel a certain aspect of craftsmanship was added to these songs, further cementing Nonpoint as a band with a unique style and sound within the scene. But this sophomore was definitely left field to what most of us were expecting as a statement follow-up.
Oh, absolutely. They sounded big and ready for the radio. That's what got us most excited. Getting the label's excitement behind music that we had just written. There's few feelings that feel better than having a monster machine like a major record label get excited about a record.
I need space too, but I want it out with you.
Our songwriting, it's random, especially from what it comes from, what a particular song will sprout from. It changes from person to person. It could be a bass line, it could be a guitar riff, it could be a word, it could be a story, it could be a drum beat, it could be a mistake that we made or something that we did during a jam in between two songs while I yapped to the crowd about White Claw or something. Shout out to White Claw, I'm looking for that sponsorship. Heads up. So songs and why they happen, I very rarely remember outside of the ones that were the most monumental. I know What a Day was sprouted from an experience that a college buddy had of mine that I put into a story. I know that In the Air Tonight was suggested by our drum tech at the time because we were from South Florida and I happened to love that song. I know Ruthless, our new song, came from just the word. So for me to go back and think of the moment that caused a song, there have been those monumental songs that definitely repeat throughout time right now, like In the Air and Ruthless and Bullet with a Name and songs like that. But Bullet with a Name, that song, Andy didn't even write that riff. My drummer, Robb, wrote that guitar riff.
Wow, you're amazing, dude.
Thanks. I like to play.
Development saw the band once again work with producer Jason Bieler, which now in retrospect, he really is a big part of the Nonpoint tribe. What was the experience like to work with him on this album and what did he bring to development?
I think Jason overall just brought importance to our songwriting and the song. I quote one of his best quotes, "It's all about the song." When it comes to anything, when it comes to everything, it really boils down to the song. That's what Jason instilled into the Nonpoint brand more than anything is our focus on our songwriting. When it comes to his producing and our song crafting, that's a matter of taste and a matter of opinion half the time. What Jason loved, our engineer Keith hated, or what, we loved to pick as a single, Jason would lean towards another one or the label would lean towards a completely different one. So when it comes to the actual producer hat, that's a different effect that Jason had on the band versus the effect Jason Bieler as a whole had on our band. He was a brilliant songwriter and had a real understanding of both sides of the business, having been an artist and now working with a band as a manager, dealing with labels and deals. Jason was our first good teacher. We learned all of our biggest, best, and some of our toughest lessons.
Do you remember how you were feeling upon the eve of Development's release?
I definitely felt confident. It was a surprise for it to not be as well received as we'd hoped. Nonpoint is such a melting pot of business, ideas, creativity, and decision-making that I think that's what has allowed us to survive as long as we have. We're like clay. Maybe even slime. We can kind of fit into anywhere. We can mold when we need to mold and move when we need to move. I said this the other day in an interview. I've seen 5 different deliveries of music. Statement was on a tape. 5 different deliveries of music. 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 and a CD. I physically, my person, I got to watch things go from vinyl to 8-track to tape to CD to MP3 to streaming services.
And then back to cassette again.
Then back to cassette again, back to vinyl. So what's crazy to me is how we have survived. But I think it's because we're okay with the changes. And we have to be okay with the changes because we deal with a lot of changes. I've dealt with a lot of lineup changes, manager changes. I've dealt with a lot of label changes. I plan on writing a book one day.
I read about it in a book.
Because if people really saw the nature of my music business over the last 25 years, they would get a lot more understanding of what musicians and labels and managers and agents and clubs and all of us deal with just to have to deal with each other. I feel like they would support it more. And if I dare, can I go down a rabbit hole?
Oh, we have all by all means.
Yeah.
Disappear down that rabbit hole. Go.
The fact that music itself is just so monetizable. We have so many people with their hands in everyone's jar, but everyone is in everyone according to everyone's best interest trying to move things forward. Producer wants to make the best song, so that way the band has the greatest success and the label can sell the most records, so that way the label can spend more on the band and vice versa. Everybody's hand is supposed to be taking care of each other. But what I've noticed is that inherently we have to all kind of watch out for ourselves. And because of that, the people that are always invested in us have to look at the bottom line so much so we've gotten to the point where we're unwilling to take risks anymore, even musically. So with that careful nature, the business has almost sterilized itself. So that way it's palatable. And what happens is efforts get missed and people fall out of love with the actual art.
Making choices and hoping that they're alright. Hating, waiting for something to make this worth the waiting. And what are you waiting for? Any advice? Intervention of a mental meltdown. Too late to help, it's out of my hands now.
So, band members, I won't tell you who left for what reason, but I can tell you one guy just didn't want to do music anymore. One guy was just a filler until we actually found the guy. Another guy, same thing. He just wasn't built for touring, just didn't like it. We're a touring band. We're very energetic. We move a lot on stage. There's reasons that people would go, well, that makes sense. And then it wouldn't be so far-fetched to assume that we would want to continue without them and find somebody else that does fit. Same thing with labels. Why did I have so many labels? My first one went out of business. One of the big 12 went out of business. I saw labels start to lose their buildings and Spotify buy them while they just owned floors in that building. Why? They had to get rid of staff. Why? Because physical went to shit. Why? Because they invested in CDs. Why? Because they weren't investing in technology. If I look back now, had I been in all those rooms, I would have convinced them all to make their own channels. Sony, Universal Channel. Everyone have their own streaming service. You know, back then it probably would have worked. But were they willing to slow that machine to a stop and start from fresh? It's impossible to ask that. And then somebody like Toby Nwigwe comes on the scene and wrecks the industry.
Would you care if I mention the fact that I'm losing my mind? And I'm not even looking this time.
Does it all by himself, his own team. Started small and built it up. So to expect a giant machine like record labels to be able to flip their infrastructure overnight because Napster is knocking on their door, it's not realistic. So now labels are evil. Okay, labels are evil now, I guess. And then now I can't be, okay, but I still need a label. You get pulled in so many different directions. It's like, well, what if we did it ourselves? Independent? Oh my God, you can't be independent. That's a taboo word. Nobody gets on the radio when they're independent. So what do we do? live our 15 years thinking, well, we can't be independent. Then all of a sudden I'm independent and I have my highest charting single to date. So everything that they told us wasn't necessarily true. But why? It might have not been true. It might have been true. They weren't willing to risk it. Why? They have shareholders. So does Facebook. So does Instagram. Why doesn't Facebook show all of my ads to all of my followers? They fucking can, or else they won't make any money. You got to think about all this.
Intervention of a mental meltdown. Too late to help. It's out of my hands now. Do you want to do what you want to and not tell me how?
The more we all complain about it and we draw attention to it, instead of trying to work at it together and really as a team or as an industry start taking risks together, then people will take a chance on us. We can't expect one thing to be the answer to anyone's success. I can't believe I'm about to fucking quote Gary Vee. Empathy is powerful. Understanding the efforts that people put into things like music, like songs, like art, like shows. If you like it and you use it to get through your day and you use it to enjoy your life, fucking reward that shit. Go out to a show, buy a t-shirt, turn somebody else on to them. It's free. People got to get out of judging all these other parts of music they don't need to be judging. Drop a heart, drop a comment, share. Little things that you're already kind of doing. That little bit of extra really helps people on our side take bigger risks. So that way we can get out of this fucking sterile, watered down machine that really wants to get the high octane put in and drop a supercharger on it and hit the gas.
Come with me if you want to live.
It's okay, Mom. He's here to help. It's okay.
You don't think A&R guys want to just sign everybody cool that they hear? You don't think every label just wants to put every band that they have on the radio? We all want to do everything. And the only way that we're going to be able to even get close and you're going to see those bands survive and all of that is through support and through understanding. And the internet is not nice. And we need to start using it as a tool to support.
I heard a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. You heard me rapping, right?
Yeah, this podcast is definitely my attempt at trying to give back that thanks, that appreciation to the artists and this music that I love and have loved for such a long time, and spread that out in the best way I can.
Yeah, and finally, the fact that the average person can create and make money at it now is a blessing. That's their full-time job now. And they're doing it even on small scales and still happy. And the more we all really start to focus on that, the longer things are going to last and the more interesting things that are going to come across your feed.
What exactly will they think of you this time? Yeah, this time. It's my turn, it's not your turn. Drowning helps the hiding, but what I seek, I'm not finding. Ready or not ready.
There are ways, and we're all finding ways. I'm finding a way right now with my brand. I was literally in a conversation before this podcast with my team about how we have all these amazing ideas and we want to do all these things. And we have to get through the ideas that we started. Adding more ideas and adding more ideas and adding more ideas and adding more ideas. And then you look back and you never got the first one completely done. And that's where I have to applaud administrative teams, labels, managers for having that pause and that filter to be able to put that energy through. But some of those filters definitely filter out too much. And there's that balance that needs to happen. I'm on phone calls daily. I spend 10 to 15 hours a day happily doing this right now because all of it matters, because it's ours. When you have that and you feel that, you start to create some amazing things. And with more support from audience groups, you're gonna get some pretty insane stuff from your creators.
Counting helps the hiding, but what I see, I'm not finding. Ready or not, ready or not, ready or not, ready or not.
When you have artists screaming, we need more, it doesn't necessarily have to come from something monetarily all the time. Sometimes it just needs a little freedom to express ourselves musically because we can feel that our fans are ready to hear that from us. I can't wait for our fans to hear our new record, our new EP that we're about to drop. I can honestly say that they probably have never heard Nonpoint like this.
Well, how would you say these concepts have affected the various stages, or maybe you could say chapters, eras of Nonpoint's career? For example, the release of development and its impact on Nonpoint and your position creatively.
Well, I think it just really made us feel like we were a force to be reckoned with in the business area of things, because it was well received in that sense. And label wanted to put a ton of money behind it, spent millions on that record. So it was a very proud moment, for sure. But then very shortly after that, that label completely dissolved. MCA was gone.
Well, and so with MCA and going back to what you were talking about before, I mean, you didn't jump to independence yet, but still that stigma of whatever it may be, switching labels, being dropped by a label, and beyond that, history is riddled with these horror stories of bands in crushing debt after signing their hopes and dreams with a major label.
The fact is, he's the sponsor. And you signed a contract guaranteeing him certain concessions, one of them being a spot on the show.
Well, that's where I see things just a little differently. Contract or no, I will not bow to any sponsor.
Head PE, for example, on Jive Records, straight off the bat with their first album, due to the label's contractual terms and disappointing sales, they were already stuck and found themselves unable to repay the cash advances given to them by Jive. Can we talk about Nonpoint's transition from MCA to Lava Records amid this major label culture?
Well, we were debt free. It was like, hey, MCA is folding out. Geffen is going on to take all their flagship artists. We weren't, quote unquote, a flagship artist. We weren't Mary J. Blige or The Roots or somebody big. We were only selling like 500,000 records. It didn't explode into platinum status just yet. So Geffen has all of their flagship artists and we're taking on all of MCA's catalog. They could only take like a quarter of the catalog, else they would have to get rid of 3/4 of their catalog. So we were debt free, and that's where Lava Atlantic was like, hey, that's a band that has almost $3.5 million invested in it, who's debt free. We will absolutely take them. They were actually trying to get us on Lava Atlantic for statement. They were one of the people fighting to get Nonpoint on their label. So when we came free and clear, they were like, yo, here's the deal, let's go.
Here we go, money talk. Here comes the money.
People don't realize what happened and why. It's like, damn, Nonpoint's on another label? Not our fault. And they wanted us and spent good money. So it was a positive thing that was looked at negatively because of perception, because people aren't just looking at the art and getting their head out of the business and out of what maybe other people are pointing out. But in the story of our band and our brand, I am seeing more success now than I saw on my biggest record because I'm independent.
Breaking mountains out of molehills, taking fountains past their fill.
The power behind that allows me to then dip my toe into getting partners, that allows me to grow my team so that way I can work the same way labels do. So I have a top tier distributor. So that way I have a promotions team and a marketing team and a person to submit all of my stuff to playlists and to do all of those things. I have those at my disposal for a fraction of what I used to spend in royalties. So now that I can still operate and still continue to put out music, I don't see any time this stopping anytime soon.
Dealing with the business side of things, because you mentioned millions on the table in the early 2000s, what's that feel like, having so much money and expectation pushed into your band?
When it comes to the label dollars, you just kind of sit back. Those are teams of people that it takes 7 signatures to get a check written. It's not something that you can just pick up the phone and just start making phone calls and getting stuff done.
Making mountains, taking fountains, shaking grounds with tiny problems. Making mountains.
That's why you have managers and A&R and product managers and vice presidents and all of those people, so that way it flows up the channel and you sit back and you put your trust into people. Put people around you that you trust.
Development debuted at 52 on the Billboard 200, which is absolutely huge. Touring the album and getting it out there, how did you feel it was received by fans of the band?
It was a hard lesson, to be honest, because it wasn't as well received as we had liked, but it also too had better success with our radio crowd. It was a double-edged sword. I feel like on most records, there's 2 or 3 development songs on that record. That was a whole record of just those kind of songs. Nonpoint has songs that feel like hip hop, some that feel like dirt rock, some that feel like metal, some that feel like ballads, some that feel like Marvel movie theme songs. What I like the most about our band is the ability to write whatever the hell we want, because I'll sing whatever, or I'll rap, or I'll scream. I'll do it all. I'll do all 3 in one song. Development, I just sang basically the entire record. The fans that really fell in love with Orgullo and fell in love with Backup and fell in love with those kind of songs missed that on Development. And that was our fault.
I do remember 20 years ago, I hear what you're saying, because I was often waiting and wanting for more of those aggressive vocals to come through, only because I really resonated a lot with that style of delivery back then. But once I started to wrap my head around what this album was all about, I knew I still had statement I could spin to scratch that itch.
On most records, there's 2 or 3 development songs on that record.
You are now listening to Alive and Kicking from 2005's To the Pain. You are now listening to 9 Years from Statement.
specimen undergoes a complete development of limbs. It explores dry land, perfects hunting skills. It can hunt freely now, in any terrain it chooses.
Having said that, what did you actually learn from the time spent touring development and playing those songs live?
Our fans are amazing. They still went crazy and still sang it. We have that kind of show, and we have that kind of music. Have you seen our show? We're not standing there. Come to our show and fucking throw down. Are you kidding me? The touring was nonstop. Yeah, we did a lot of touring on that record and that whole cycle. That whole part of our career, all the way up to the Pain, was very packed with nonstop travel. I remember one year we were out for 18 months. I was home 23 days.
Holy shit, man.
I think we logged in 1 year like 250 shows, 300 shows. You know, that time was a fun time. It was a very blissful time, but I paid for it.
Yeah.
For sure. Financially and creatively. Again, the more you leave it up to others to do work that you should definitely be doing, the further away you're going to get away from the actual reward. But it translates because we've been that for 25 years. People know what they can get from us. And we're not about to fucking throttle that back. Hell no. That's not what it was. Yeah. It's what the critics say. That then the followers go, oh, I never thought of it that way, so I guess I'll start fucking hating it down. It's so stupid. I watch it happen all the time. It's like, all right, I get it. Perception changes your heart quickly. It's like, what? You never know. You never know. People aren't built the same, man. Bands aren't built the same. Labels aren't built the same. Everyone's story is different. So just focus on the music, and the rest you will enjoy.
Not so lost, not so fast, not reacting, not so, not the boss, not the past, not reacting, not so. Gotta get me from point of pressure to point of no return to turn me inside out. I know my answers don't meet your satisfaction, but if they cause your reaction, excessive reaction, excessive reaction, excessive reaction, excessive reaction from you.
People don't give the rock community enough credit in that sense, where something can happen like it happened at a Travis Scott concert, but Slipknot concerts and Lamb of God concerts and Bring Me the Horizon concerts happen all the fucking time, and people don't get trampled. And they have walls of death.
Bring me that horizon.
It's the people and what they care about. That's what it's got to be. It's got to be the community. And when the community is too focused on what the community thinks instead of focused on the community, that's a problem. And that's when you start getting fly-by-night shit and people coming and going. Because we can't keep our hearts in it. How am I supposed to stay in love with it when people pick it apart so deeply?
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Do any of those development songs still resonate with you today or grace the stage?
You know, we don't play a lot of songs off that record. I'm surprised you're asking so many questions about it, to be honest with you. But it's a good side for people to know. So I'm glad you asked.
You mentioned just before that you're surprised I'm asking so many questions about development. For me, I'm often curious about learning a little more with certain moments in a band's career where there just isn't so much story or information out there. Often these are pretty make or break periods or sit around a particular notion of big change within the history or the trajectory of the given band. And I'm sure there is a lot of interest out there for this album, a lot of love, and it's a release that, well, even just within this interview, it's quite clear now, it was a massive stepping stone in that immense creative, business, and personal lesson and growth between Statement and Recoil.
Oh yeah, man. The wounds are still fresh. Yeah, it's a lot. No, I'm glad you're asking about it because I'm hoping people quote this interview a lot and this podcast a lot. I'm definitely going to share it because, you know, we're saying a lot in this podcast and I want people to really understand the human beings that are behind all of these machines and all these profiles that you just see pictures and videos and shit. I'd really like for people to understand intentions and to support that more than judge it or critique it.
While you wait for nothing,
I tell you what, I'll tell you the song that really stands out. Circles.
Going around in circles again. Going around in circles again.
It literally led to our community, our fan group on Facebook, and our 361 community, which is basically our unofficial, official fan group.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
A group of guys led by Sean Reinhardt and a few other cool dudes put together a fan group called 361 Degrees All Things Nonpoint. And they all started calling themselves the 361 family and the 361ers, and we kind of adopted that. And it's why our label is what it is. Through our conversations and our creative rebranding of the band, you know, when Frankie and I and Rusha and even all the guys in the band were all talking about what we were going to name the label, we realized it was that group of, 15, 16,000 people that are always talking, that have really been the heartbeat of this band for a very, very, very long time, about 10 years since the group started.
Won't finish a race, real youth stare chase. Satisfaction only when I finish at the end. If I follow all the rules, promise that I'll win.
The song, the lyric says 361 degrees and then I'm going around in circles again. Because it's that one more degree that allows you to not only revel in the accomplishment, but it also reminds you that you got to keep going.
If it's stuff for us, it's stuff for them.
I get asked all the time in interviews, when do you plan on stopping? When do you plan on retiring? And James Hetfield said it too. Well, what the fuck am I going to stop for? I still have the ability, still have tons of music that I can write. I'm working with people that I adore and respect, musicians that I've been friends with and peers with that I've always wanted to work with. Now I'm about to start working with. So I feel like that's no one's decision or place to even bring up or say or even question. It's like, when is it going to stop? It's going to stop when you hear the announcement. Until then, we're going until the fucking wheels fall off. Yeah, so fucking stop asking, would you?
Well, at least I'm just here asking only questions about development.
No, I know. That was when I have a moment of writer's block, I'm gonna lean on my team and I'm gonna lean on professionals as long as I have the ability. We're working with Chris Collier right now, who just did the last Korn record. I just worked with Fred Archambault for 2 records and an EP, and before him, Johnny K and Jason Bueller and
Chad and Greg from Mudvayne.
Absolutely. I've had an opportunity to work with some pretty amazing people, and I feel like I'm going to have an opportunity to work with many more. And I'm going to Anthony Hopkins the shit out of this career.
But you have to try, because if you haven't tried, you haven't lived.
Let's keep this fun going.
So if I take everything you've been talking over, the highs and lows surrounding development and the lessons learned, at that point in time, as a band, how do you keep moving forward?
We started writing more music. What else do you do? Pick yourself up. We started writing more music.
And this would take form with 2004's Recoil, the band's first and only release via Lava Atlantic, housing the singles The Truth and the Miami Vice movie cover theme song, In the Air Tonight. From album opener The Same, it's quite clear Nonpoint streamlined a focus towards what fans would label as a return to form or return to their roots.
You are about to listen to The Same from 2004's Recoil.
Diving straight into a galloping double kick driven chorus exclaiming,
Things haven't changed, you haven't changed, I haven't changed, no. Things that you say, you wanna change, you haven't changed, you're just the same.
yes, this is still the same band, now with statement and development under their belt.
Let me bring you up to speed.
I love looking over albums like this in a band's back catalogue because they always mark such opinion, such division, and also such development one way or another in a band's career and their relationship with fans. Prior to 2004, from the other side of the world, working in a CD/DVD retail store called Sanity Music, I imported from the US both statement and development. And Lips will definitely know all about my adventures as an Aussie ordering import catalogue. Similar with Snots Get Some, big dollars, and a long waiting time. But hearing What a Day, live, mind you, was enough for me to take that leap of faith. And with the music of Statement running through my veins, of course, it was a no-brainer to once again take that leap with importing development. I even had 2002's documentary accompaniment thanks to an independent record store in Brisbane that I was able to order it through. So the dedication we went to over 20 years ago was the real deal. Fans were fans, not only of the band, but I think for this music and culture as a whole. In some ways, if you wanted to dive in, you couldn't just sit on the fence, you had to commit. But because you wanted to, and because it gave you that joy and that support to the artist too, pre-social media, that's at least how it felt for me. You were investing into the art and artist, and it felt great.
Yeah.
It would not be until 2015 that Nonpoint would finally make their live debut in Australia at the once iconic Soundwave Festival. Prior to this, and going back as far as 20 plus years ago when social media didn't exist, internet was limited, and your CDs were a mission to obtain on the other side of the world. Were you able to connect with international fans back then, and were you even aware there was a fan base in Australia?
Yeah, because they would still find a way to get in touch with members of the band one way or another. It was always our biggest hurdle, and it's still to this day is Nonpoint's biggest hurdle is traveling overseas, because we always incur 90% of the cost. In order for us to do that, where we make so much money here in the States, performing here, to go over to Europe, to bring the show, it would cost us so much money. So that's what we were constantly up against. That's one of the reasons why we went independent, because now it's not a case of can we, it's a case of when are we? And we just put it in the marketing plan and figure out ways by putting together merchandise campaigns to then fund those things, because the label wouldn't fund them. The money just wouldn't be there. The expense of touring and how important merchandise is, because I have to pay my crew, and I have to pay the bus, and I have to pay the bus trailer, and I have to pay the gas in the bus, and then I have to pay for the driver's hotel, and then I have to pay for overdrives. And that's before I even get anything. So I normally don't on that show money. That show money doesn't come to the band normally, because the amount of money that you make normally goes to cover just getting you there. So then I have to pay for the shirt, and then I have to pay for the club cut, and then I have to pay my merch person. Then we split that money. Like everything else, it's a double-edged sword. As much freedom as I have, as much fun as it is to know that I do, and I can feel that freedom to do what you want with your art there is all of the risk. There is all the financial peril. There is the responsibilities. With the fun comes the hard work.
So then I imagine the opportunity to come to Australia in 2015 was something covered for the most part by Soundwave itself.
They covered everything. They literally covered every single thing. And we were happily able to say yes.
Nice.
Just the flights alone for the 5 guys, that right there is $8,000 to play 4 shows in Australia. And then I have to fly to each show. That's probably about $10,000, $15,000. The amount of money to come home with is normally in the negative. It's something that I'm actually working on right now, so that way people could understand what we're up against. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy. To put it in perspective, the bus costs $800 to fill, and it gets 5 miles to the gallon. One of my crew people, just one, could be upwards of $2,000 a week. Just to put on the show, I need a sound guy, I need a guitar tech, or at least a backline guy. I need somebody to sell the merch. Somebody's got to drive. Normally we have a drum tech and a guitar tech. I have 5 band members, so like there's 12 people. You know how many hotel rooms that would be if we weren't in a bus? Or we could have less and put on less of a show, and people, oh, Nonpoint came out with less this time. It was, you know, and then we're up against that. It is hard.
Yeah, no matter what, you have to keep fueling that fire and presenting your best.
Right. We have to keep up appearances, and that's costly. The less costly it is for us, and the more we can just keep building and building and building.
So then back in the day, how did it work with that major label support when it came to touring? They'd cover and you'd pay back?
Oh, no. That's not it. No. They have a 0 stake in your touring and are willing to put $0 into your touring unless they feel like it's going to grow the awareness of that album, not your band, of that album. Because they're not in business with your band, they're in business with that piece of art. That's what they have signed a contract with. They just need you to go out there and promote it.
Okay, man. Yeah. Wow.
You're like, man, you're blowing my fucking mind, right?
Well, yeah.
That's the misconception of music artists and the partners that we work with. For us to tour, that's 1,000% on our dime. So if I'm only making, $3,000, $5,000 in a night, how the hell am I going to pay all these bills? That's what you got to consider. Is it worth me going out there and seeing that band? Yeah, it is if you want them to keep going. If you really do truly support them, then that's what you do. You get out there and you support them. And we're lucky, man. We have really supportive fans. So we do our best to give that back to them. And we were spending too much money on our teams and not enough money on them.
Now take back what is left of what you've had, barely enough to keep me down.
And it sounds something like coming full circle now, surrounded by a great team that want to give that and everyone on the same page.
Thankfully for us, it has. We have really, really, really strong team members. And our agent is amazing, Eric, and everybody at STG, our label members, Frankie and Rusha, our creative director, and our COO. I'm basically head of marketing. We have a very, very strong unit of people that care about us and understand our value and work to get us what we're worth. And then we give them the effort so that way they keep giving us their effort. My team does it because they love it. They are definitely not in it because of the money. I can't say thank you enough. I'm constantly, Rusha, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Guys, Eric, everybody, thank you so much. Just because we know it's not easy, so we're thankful.
Thankful and still with that passion. That's definitely a nice place to be after 25 years, man.
Exactly. That's why I wake up every day. My daughter, my family, and this band, and my cat.
Okay, so looking back with 20 years of retrospect, even looking back over this interview right now, what does development mean to you, and where does it sit for you personally and creatively within the Nonpoint back catalog?
It's some of our biggest growth and some of our biggest lessons. That's as best as I can put it, honestly. We learned so much, and we wrote a beautiful record.
Action.
I think for me, there are many special moments on development. This album has something about it. And yes, the songwriting in general, but also the way it translates. And I don't know how to put this into the technical, but there's definitely something about the overall sound of this album. Its mix, master, its tone is really unlike any other Nonpoint album. The songs are of course heavy, but not in a way that we had come to expect from Statement. You really hear all the instruments clearly working alongside each other, but not on top of one another. There's this clarity and space for air, a breath within it all.
Beautiful.
It has a beautiful landscape to it. Cinematic. The heaviness, it feels quite tranquil.
I think that's why I'm so excited about the new one, because I feel like that's what people are going to start saying about the new EP. The guys are really pushing hard. It's intricate, man. It is intricate. I'm interested to see this stuff live. We've really set the bar for ourselves.
Once again.
Absolutely. So why the fuck am I going to quit, right?
Exactly. I'll be sure never to ask that question.
Better not.
Oh, well, man. Well, Elias, where do I start? Let's go with a huge thank you for your time and energy on the Life Is Peachy podcast, sharing so much insight and for giving fans a deep dive into not only development, but the blueprint of Nonpoint and its 25 plus years in the game.
Hey, it was great questions, great care in crafting the questions. You know, that's why I wanted to keep going. You definitely took the time and really thought about it, and you do good work. I really enjoyed this podcast a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you really enjoyed this. It means a lot.
I can't wait to hear it, man.
Nice.
I can't wait to hear me.
Adulthood. The final stage in the life cycle of the frog. Physical growth has reached its apex. Proficiency improves via new experiences and fresh stimuli. The frog, like all organisms, continues to develop and mature until expiration.
You know, I can eat a peach for hours.
This episode was written, edited, and produced by myself. Recorded from the comfort of my own home.
DIY style.
With each guest calling in from wherever they happen to be around the world at that particular time. The Life Is Peachy theme song is an original tune for this podcast, written by Tim Richardson. All music by the artist featured in this episode is used with permission. Further details can be found in the description of the specific episode. All artwork is original and illustrated for the Life Is Peachy podcast by Chris Lisa Liefting.